epitome of leading all in the field and played great. The really helped, made a big was very impactful, and their quarterback only rushing for 14 yards, and we were really worried about that. As an offense, they got out on the 31-yarder, but rushed for in the 80s. Took away something that's been very, very effective for them. I've been saying it for a couple weeks now. I mean, Rashawn's gotten doubled. He's gotten chipped. He's gotten cut. Probably the ultimate compliment you can pay to a football player is to, have that much concern about one guy and then have that type of game plan. So, he's earning that kind of respect. And the defense again is playing really well. Now when you start to stack up some of the things they've done in terms of limiting opponents to total yards. There's a stat there that we're one of, I think, 10 teams that have allowed 280 some yards or less in their first 6 ball games since 2000. Has the most punts against us of any team in college football this year. Some really great things. 3 and outs. Team is playing very well on defense. Great to see the turnovers. Lavert Hill interception. Really felt like his other interception was a legal play. Didn't feel like he interfered on that one. And Tyree gets the one in the back of the end zone. That was great. Great effort by Chase Winovich. Getting the big hit, getting the hustle play, and putting the pressure on the quarterback.
Did you know that ticket prices can actually go down right before the game? That's where Game Time comes in. Game Time tracks ticket prices in real time from thousands of trusted sellers, then shows you all the best deals. So we can get tickets at the last minute for up to 60% off. Download Game Time now.
Hello friends, and welcome to the Michigan Football Report presented by Game Time. I'm Tom Downey. Alongside me is the Michigan football insider, James Yoder. James, how are you today?
Tom, I'm doing great. I'll tell you what, I'm hoping this 3-game stretch of terrible play, really kind of 4-game stretch going of terrible play, is behind us now, and it's going to be a big second half of the season. Jim Harbaugh's had a good record against Penn State the last couple of years. Michigan overall in their series history has had a lot of big wins on the road in Happy Valley, so there's a sense of optimism for me going into this game.
All right, folks, once again, today's show is brought to you by the Game Time app. Head to chatsports.com/tickets to get the Game Time app today. James, the reviews speak for themselves. Highly reviewed on the iOS and the Play Store.
Yeah, Tom, I told you a couple weeks ago, I went to that Michigan State game. I thought I had a ticket. Ticket got pulled last minute, a little mix-up there. I pulled up Game Time 5 minutes before the game, and I got a ticket half price the guy sitting next to me. But I just sit by myself because, I got dissed. But Game Time saved me. Big shout out to them. Go ahead and download their app. You'll love it.
All right, again, folks, that's chatsports.com/tickets. Let's get to some news and notes now. One of these coming from Coach Harbaugh saying that blaming the quarterback is the low-hanging fruit, and that's not what he wants to do. James, do you agree with Coach here?
It is the low-hanging fruit, obviously, because that's what everyone looks at. But it is definitely a valid complaint if you are a Michigan football fan, a member of the media like ourselves, doing podcasts and shows like this. So the quarterback play stands out like a sore thumb. 1, because it's been so terrible, and 2 is because it's year 3, and Jim Harbaugh has not developed a quarterback that really scares any defense. And that's kind of concerning to some fans, because where do we go next year, the year beyond? Is this going to be a trend? So I think it's low-hanging, but that's kind of the fruit you pick sometimes, right?
I could not agree more with you there, James. We'll head now to our next news and note. This one coming in from Pro Football Focus. A little bit of buzz around MAURICE HURST being the #1 pick in the NFL draft.
Yeah, I mean, he's had quite a game, quite a season so far. It's funny wasn't even a starter last year. Could go from a starter to a top 10 pick, maybe number one. Pro Football Focus, a site that we respect. They do more, reviews of film than anybody, even more than the teams. They've got him as their number one player. Basically, who's graded out the best through 6 games this year. So that's big praise for him. And with him and Gary, you can see why Michigan's got the number one defense in the country. So I would not be surprised if Michigan had like back-to-back top 2 or 3 picks with HURST this year, Gary next year on that defensive line.
And then a little fun news and note for us, James. The Michigan Football Report video podcast is now number 3 in the world. How about that?
Tom, I'll tell you what, it's no surprise to me because of the level of insights, highlights, analysis that we are bringing to the table here. It's no surprise at all. So Michigan Football Report, the video version, go on. It's iPhone only for video, but just go search it. We're going to give you a short link here. Just go to chatsports.com/GoBlue from your iPhone browser. It's going to drop you right in there. You can watch this show. We also cut up the best segments. We put Harbaugh's press conference on there. We do highlights after the game. So it's the only app you need for Michigan football, Tom. There's not a single other Michigan football video podcast out there that's any good. The only other one that's decent is Big Ten Network, and still it's just a bunch of schmucks talking about mostly Big Ten and then a little bit of Michigan.
If we have our way, intentional talk will be dropped down from 2 to 3 here in just a little bit.
I'll tell you what, Tom, I subscribed to them last night. I gave them a 1 star, said this is a bad podcast, went back and unsubscribed, trying to get our rankings up. So I'd really suggest everyone else does the same.
All right, folks, again, that's chatsports.com/GoBlue to get the Michigan Football Report video podcast. You mentioned highlights, James.
Hey, Tom, did you notice right there? We've got the number 3, which is also you. You've got 2 of the top 3 podcasts the world right now for sports. That is crazy. You should be just drinking champagne. But congrats to that, Tom. It's a big week for you.
I'll be getting some tonight. Don't you worry. All right.
Nice. Good to hear.
You mentioned some highlights there, James. We'll jump now into what happened over the weekend. Indiana, Michigan. This was a good matchup to watch for non-Michigan fans. A little frustrating, though, if you were a Michigan fan. Early in the game, block punt. MAURICE HURST blocked it. Lavert Hill picked it up. So it's 6-0 now. This is actually a pretty great play from John O'Corn, evading the pressure and finding Donovan Peoples-Jones for the first down. But the Michigan offense wasn't quite clicking for much of the game. But then Karan Higdon, who was unreal in this one, bounces wide, a 12-yard score. Michigan goes up 13-3 now. Here's Morgan Ellison right up the middle in the third quarter, 13-10. But then it's Higdon again. This time he's going to go 59 yards right up the gut for the score, and it's 20-10 Michigan. But down 10, Indiana wouldn't quit. Peyton Ramsey picked off by Lavert Hill. That felt like after that this was going to be a Michigan win. But then here comes Indiana.
Yep.
Ramsey drops back, finds his man for the score, an 8-yard TD. It's a 3-point game. Next play, Indiana tries the onside kick. I'll be honest, James. I thought that Simi Cobbs caught this. I thought his left foot was in bounds when he had the ball. Apparently not. So the onside kick doesn't count. But Indiana got the ball back. They had a field goal with 2 seconds left as time expired from 46 yards out to tie the game at 20. But in overtime, the Wolverines stepped back up. Karan Higdon again bottled up for a loss of 3 yards, escaped, and then took it all the way to the end zone for the score. 25 carries on the day for 200 yards and 3 scores. And then Indiana needing to respond in overtime. 4th and goal, Ramsey just kind of floats one up, picked off by Tyree Cannell. And Michigan, James, escapes with a 27-20 win.
Yeah, Tom, they really did escape. I was feeling great about this game. Not about the game, but about the chances of victory there in the fourth quarter. Michigan had given up 0 points on defense the entire fourth quarter, 5 straight games. Then they gave up 10 to an Indiana team that really doesn't have a very potent offense. So I don't know if you can really blame that much on the defense. There was a special teams play in there. The offense didn't move the ball at all. And then Michigan actually even got lucky with Cobb. They called him out of bounds, right? Like it was his toe on maybe brushed the chalk. So I think Michigan got very lucky to win this game, and they're going to have to play a heck of a lot better at Penn State to even make it a competitive game, let alone win the game, Tom. And so the kind of play that stood out to me in the game is that I think the offensive coordinators got a pass because Karan Higdon all of a sudden arrived, and that touchdown that he scored 25 yards, I think it was in the first play, maybe the second, but he was stopped for 3 yards, like you said, and it was his vision to cut to the left and take it to the house that Michigan got it, because if not, I don't think they score a touchdown, and Indiana is going for that touchdowns for the win, not to tie it.
Reaction poll up on screen, and we want you guys watching to vote. How do you feel about the win over Indiana? A heart if you have the a win is a win mindset, a haha face if it's just you're thinking that the offense is awful, a wow face if you think that you should have blown them out, and an angry face if it was we got lucky. Where do you fall, James?
Well, you know my answer. It's they got lucky because I just said it, right? And Michigan did get lucky in this game, and I think that that luck is either going to run out or the team is going to change how they play football, because they're not going to win Ohio State, Penn State, Wisconsin, basically 3 of the top 6 teams in the country right now coming up over the next 6 weeks. They're going to lose all 3 of those games by a lot if the offense can't move the ball.
All right, folks, once again, I am Tom Downey. Alongside me is James Yoder on the Game Time hotline. And head over to chatsports.com/tickets to get the Game Time app today. Would it play a little hot or not, James?
Yep.
All right, we'll start here with, I think, a pretty obvious hot. Karan Higdon, the halfback, has been unreal. He was unreal against Indiana. How confident are you feeling right now in his ability?
So I look back, just trying to remind myself why Karan Higdon is not the starting running back. And so he was Michigan, with Davion Smith last year. They were very inconsistent with who played. Smith usually got the start, but then Evans, then you got Higdon here and there. But Higdon also had a good game last year against Penn State. I look back, it was something like 80 yards rushing. I think he had a score. So he's done it before, 80 yards in very limited carries. And so I think he can have a good game against them this year. But this is a different Penn State defense than we've seen in the past. I mean, they are up there. They're number 1 scoring defense right now. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. But I'm fairly confident, as long as the coaching staff doesn't do what I think they do too much, which is go away from their hot hand, right? And I don't know why they've had that. They've stuck to the just rotating backs mindset. I think they should stick with Higdon and give him 20 carries or more.
Funny you mentioned the hot hand, because that's our next poll up on screen right now. Who should be the featured back? Higdon, Isaac, Evans, or James, the hot hand?
I think it's got to be Higdon until proven otherwise, and that means that he's getting less than 4.5 yards a carry, because Chris Evans has been brutal, Tom, the last few weeks. Yeah. I mean, there's been a couple games where he's got double-digit carries and had single-digit yards or something around 1 yard a carry kind of thing. So I would say you got to stick with Higdon for the first half, maybe mix in a little Isaac and Evans. I should have put this on the rumor meter, but there is some buzz that Evans is getting a little play at kind of a slot receiver where he's kind of split out instead of coming out of the running back, trying to get him more involved in the passing game because of the emergence of Higdon. So we'll see how that plays out, but it's got to be Higdon in my opinion.
I think that's fair. All right, we'll head now to our next hot or not. We'll stick with the positive here, James. Mason Cole, the offensive lineman, you've been very impressed with him.
About time, where's this offensive line been? They've been bad for a decade, but really they've been poor under Jim Harbaugh for the majority of games that he has been the football coach. And they came through when they really needed it against, kind of an average Indiana team. But the offensive line was stout. They opened up holes when they needed to. If Cole doesn't hold his block on the left side, then Higdon doesn't even have that lane to cut back to. Mason Cole was the guy who opened up that kind of cut back for the touchdown in overtime. So Cole was the best, but I think the entire offensive line had their best game in at least a full season. I would say kind of going back to mid-year last year. Maybe it might have been their best game since Penn State last year when Michigan ran for almost 400 yards and 6 touchdowns.
Quick comment here coming in from our friend of the show, Danny, says, Karan is easily the best power and ISO guy we have. Given we seem to be cutting zone runs the last few weeks, he will most likely stay the featured back. James, I think that you're on board with that statement.
Yeah, I mean, he can go up Chris Evans has not proven he can take the ball into the meat of the defense. Ty Isaac, up until the Florida game, and really not since, has not proven he can do so either. So if you're going to play a power game and you don't think you can pass the ball, which is what Michigan has just basically admitted at this point, they can't pass the ball, and it's not all John O'Corn, it's the receivers too, then I think you've got to just go a heavy dose to the ground game. If Michigan runs the same philosophy as they did last year against Penn State, they can win this game. Go look at that game. It was all ground and pound. I think there's a reason for that. I think they saw a way to exploit Penn State, and they'll try and do the same tomorrow.
And then one more hot or not. This is almost a weekly hot candidate, James. Defensive coordinator Don Brown, who has been fantastic this year.
Yeah, he is super hot, Tom, and I'm just impressed over and over and over. I have not, when we look at defensive ranks for total yards, a lot of times points scored against last season in particular, and then things, the stats that really matter, like third down conversion. It's a 1 next to Michigan all the time. It's been like this ever since he started at Michigan. We're 19 games into his tenure as defensive coordinator. I really hope that they keep this guy long term, and not trying to take a shot at Tim Drevno. I kind of hope he can take some sort of a different approach like Don Brown. Super aggressive, plug-and-play guys. Lost 10 starters in the defense, Tom. Still is the #1 defense according to the stats in the country. So you can't get any hotter than Don Brown right now. He's the assistant coach of the year in college football, in my opinion.
And then time to move to the not category, unfortunately, as this has almost been a weekly not. The quarterback play, namely John O'Korn. Look, he had a bunch of issues against Michigan State, keeping the football and not turning it over. And then against Indiana, he didn't really do anything. 10 of 20 for 58 yards. It was almost like that Michigan didn't want to throw the ball at all.
5 yards in the second half, Tom. 5 passing yards. I can't even. I mean,
you have to
how
try
is
to
it
get
even
that
possible? Yeah, it is possible. I think you could get a tip ball, Lineman could catch it, and he would go for more than 5 yards. If that happened. So they don't trust O'Korn at all. I really kind of wish that Penn State was a week from now, because I do think Brandon Peters would get a shot to at least start or get some solid play against a lesser opponent. But I don't think they're going to throw Peters in against Penn State. Probably ultimately the right idea, because you don't know what you're getting out of Peters, and if you want to have a chance to beat Penn State, you've got to basically just admit you're going to hold them to under 17 points or under 20 points, and hope your offense can score at least 1 touchdown and get some help elsewhere. So if O'Korn can eliminate the turnovers like he did last week, then Michigan has a chance to win the game. But I fully expect Peters to get played down the line.
Do you want Michigan to bench O'Korn, James? That's our current weighing up on screen.
Yeah, I mean, rationally, yes. Or I guess rationally, no, not till next week. But the fan in me says yes. Bench him 2 weeks ago. Peters should have started from game 1, because Spate wasn't the guy losing 3 out of his last 4 last year. So it really, Tom, screams to me a lack of recruiting success in that 2015 class, which is a 6-week class, and the full 2016 class, which Brandon Peters came in. You only get 1 quarterback through those 2 classes. I guess Alex Malzone, but he was a Hoke recruit. And you get 1 quarterback recruit in Peters, and then you get O'Korn to come over as a transfer. And Malzone was the guy you kept on. So 3 quarterbacks, and none of them can make college football level plays at this point. Somehow Will Spate was able to last year for a good portion, but I don't know what's going on there. And if Brandon Peters is a total bust, which it sounds like he could be unless he proves us wrong, then you're starting a redshirt freshman Dylan McCaffrey next year with, again, the best defense in the country. So coming back to it, the short answer is not this week, but next week against Rutgers, yes.
Some good comments here coming in that I want to get to. Brian Hengel says play the rookie quarterback. I don't know if he means McCaffrey or Peters, but in reality, they're both kind of first-year guys.
Although Peters has been on campus for almost 2 years now. He came on campus January of 2016, so he's 2.5 months shy of 2 years. He's a little more. McCaffrey did not come on campus early. He's been on campus for 2 months.
Tom says yes. Bench O'Korn throws in a please as well. Danny,
I love politeness. I'm a big manners guy.
Danny chiming in here says that Michigan uses a pro-style offense with a quarterback that can't go through progressions. He should not be a college quarterback. Do you agree, James?
100%. I mean, O'Korn, you watch him every play. It's so predictable that he looks to the first guy for about 3 seconds. It's usually not open, and then he panics and starts running. And occasionally you'll find Donovan Peoples-Jones with a crazy throw that should have probably been picked off, but most times it's throw it out of bounds or scramble for 2.5 yards. So it's really funny, Tom. I really encourage people, go back and watch John O'Korn 2013 at Houston. It is almost like a different human being. I don't understand how you can become this much worse at a quarterback. It looks like Ryan Mallett or like one of these air raid guys that we see. It's like Texas Tech or something like that. He was a gunner, and all of a sudden he can't even make elementary school passes. I just don't understand how you regress that much in 4 years.
Dennis here says that you can put Peters in this game, not on the road, which is not accurate because this is a road game for Michigan.
Yeah, I don't know what he means by that. So yeah, this is a road game. So yeah, don't put him in this week, basically.
All right. One more not, then we're going to
maybe
get
he
to
means
guys.
you can't put Peters in this game.
Yeah.
He may have meant
Maybe that
can't.
makes
Maybe
sense.
that's where the typo is.
Yeah. All right, good folks. Keep the comments coming. We will get some more as we go along. We'll talk briefly here about the Michigan wide receivers, James, because they've been non-factors this year.
They've been a very disappointing time, and you lost your two starters. I get that, and Grant Perry has kind of emerged a little bit as a reliable guy sometimes, but other than Grant Perry getting 22 catches, you've seen nothing that gives you any room to be excited about the wide receivers this season and beyond. They don't run good routes. They never get open deep, and they never make a play in the ball, Tom. And I wish Michigan would stop throwing those 15-yard fade patterns when they get in the red zone, because Michigan is 0 for about 11 this season on throwing at them, and they're usually throwing them to guys who are 5'11" and not 6'5", which they do have a few of those guys on roster. They just don't get those passes.
And then one more not here, James. It was the fourth quarter defense, which up until this point had been unreal all year. Then they actually gave up points against Indiana.
Yeah, so we had to throw in a little knot. Gotta hold those guys in check. They don't want to be reading the press clippings. They're on the not list because they could have come up with a stop, right? They ultimately did. That's why it's not, the overtime doesn't count for the fourth quarter in my book. The OT defense, I would say, is on the hot list. The fourth quarter and the not, but they gotta bring fourth quarter defense pretty much the entire game against Penn State, or the whole team's gonna be on not next week because they'll get crushed.
All right, folks. Once again, I'm Tom Downey. Alongside me is the Michigan football insider, James Yoder. Today's show is brought to you by the Game Time app. Head over to chatsports.com/tickets to get the Game Time app today. The #1 app if you need last-minute sports or concert tickets, as James can attest to.
Tom, really quick. So I was sitting last night, and I don't know if you guys believe me, but I don't even know NFL football is going on half the time. I did not know the Raiders were playing last night. When you guys were talking in Slack, I didn't know there was a touchdown. I was like, whatever. And so I realized myself, oh, the Raiders are in town. That would have been a good game to go to while I'm in San Francisco and not with you guys in Dallas. Pull up Game Time. And I'm like, who the 49ers play? They play the Cowboys. Boom, that's going to be awesome. And somehow the tickets, they were cheaper than StubHub, but they're still like $100. And I'm like, what world are we living in? 49ers tickets are $6. So Dallas Cowboys are inflating people's expectations of tickets. It's 15x more than any other 49ers game. So I won't be going to the game.
That's too bad there. Once again, folks, Game Time and the Game Time app, that's chatsports.com/tickets. James, we'll head now to our Michigan Man Top 10. And at number 10, a guy we talked about earlier, it's Mason Cole.
Finally we got an offensive lineman on this. I think maybe week 2 we had somebody. I don't remember why, just to be nice. But Cole's on there, Tom, and I wish we had another year of this guy. Unfortunately, this is his last season, but it seems like Michigan always has one offensive lineman you just wish would have redshirted or something like that. And Cole is the guy this year. Next year it'll be Ben Bredesen. You wish he had one more year, et cetera, and beyond. So like Cole, hopefully he keeps it up, but good to see him on there.
He is number 10 on our Michigan Man Top 10, the best Michigan players for this year's Wolverine squad. We'll head now to number 9, another new appearance, James, then a guy we talked about earlier, Karan Higdon.
Yeah, and Tom, he could rocket up the list. He could be in the top 2 or 3 if he has another big game against Penn State. The reason he's only 9 is because this is his first appearance. You don't have one game and jump up against guys who have been in the top 5, top 6, top 7 all season, bringing A+ level games for half a year. So he has a chance to move up very quickly, but he's got to do it more than 1 week.
Do you think he's going to remain the star back for Michigan, and is he going to produce again like he did against Indiana, 25 for 200?
I think if they stick to the game plan of run the ball on the ground, I bet he'll get over 125 this week. And if he does that, I think Michigan will have multiple red zone opportunities, which is actually tough for me to say because I sometimes it's like how would we score? I can't conceive of a possibility where Michigan scores a point at this point. But if it's Higdon on the ground, and he showed some good breakaway speed, I didn't know he had, Tom. So got to keep him in there. I think he'll go over 100 this week, and Michigan will be able to keep it close and have a chance.
Head now to number 8 on our Michigan Man Top 10. It's a cornerback, David Long. Hint, hint, not the highest rated cornerback on this list. But, James, I've been very impressed by how well he's done in coverage.
Great. I mean, Michigan has had very few balls go deep on them this year. Phrasing, and really the only long touchdowns were against the safeties. So Long, as a true sophomore, a guy who didn't get much play last year, I think he's done phenomenally well. Michigan has not missed a beat when it comes to their quarterbacks. Cornerbacks.
Yeah, I know that Peyton Ramsey, Indiana's quarterback, isn't the greatest quarterback, but Simi Cobbs is a talented player at receiver. He had nothing going against Michigan's defense. 4 receptions for 39 yards. I think that speaks to how good these young corners have been for Michigan.
Yeah, absolutely.
Head now to number 7 on our Michigan Man Top 10. A pretty steady presence in the top 10. Kaliki Hudson, the linebacker safety hybrid, playing the Viper spot, or at least for a portion of this year.
I forget about Hudson sometimes these last few games, but he'll pop up every once in a while. I'm like, oh man, Hudson, he's having a decent year. So I really expect a little more out of him, Tom. I thought after the first 2 games he'd be up there in the top 2 or 3, but no bad plays out of him. Not really getting the interceptions or anything, or the sacks that some of his counterparts are, but altogether he's having a heck of a year filling in for Jabril Peppers. I'd have to say he's actually having a better year on defense than Peppers has ever had at Michigan.
I actually agree with you there. Head now to number 6 on our Michigan Man Top 10. This is a guy who I think had peaked as high as 2 or 3 at one point. It's Chase Winovich, but the sacks and tackles for loss have kind of slowed down after a really hot start.
Yeah, he just gets after the quarterback, Tom. He maybe probably takes a little he gets a little bit of an advantage over other players because he's got Hurst and Gary right next to him, and more of the focus is on those guys. So he's left to his own volition to kind of get to the quarterback. But he's having a great year in the top 6. And Tom, this defensive line, I'll just give Michigan credit. They had him last year. They have him this year. Harbaugh's guys have developed defensive linemen, and I think Michigan's got one of the top 5 D lines in the country, if not top 1 or 2.
Head now into the top 5 on our Michigan Man Top 10. And James, it's good that he's on here, but also not good because you never want your kicker to be one of your top 5 players.
Tom, I was in some conversations with some folks this week, and they challenged me to disagree with them that if Michigan gives away Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, okay, who is it? Hurst, Gary, maybe Lavert Hill, defense, Devin Bush. Who's their Offensive Player of the Year? It is Quinn Nordin at this point. He's the best player on your offense. Sad, right? But it's as a fact, and I don't know what's going to change unless Karan Higdon just gets 5, 6 more games of 100 yards or more.
I totally agree. This is the highest, if you can call him an offensive player, the highest offensive guy in the Michigan Man Top 10 for this week. It's good that he's been consistent, but you never want your kicker being a top 5 player for you.
Absolutely. It's sad, but he's come on great. I think he's your All-American. I think one of the All-American polls we talked about this week had him as the first-team All-American kicker.
I couldn't agree more. Head now to number 4 as we get into a heavy defensive portion here. Cornerback Lavert Hill, he's had some really impressive games against UC, for example. He was also very good against Indiana. He has stepped up and replaced a very talented group of corners at Michigan with almost, no downside or no, step down.
Yeah, Lavert Hill, he's turned into a star, Tom. I don't know if there's any step down from guys who are playing in the NFL like Jordan Lewis right now. So the fact that Michigan has almost all of these guys coming back on next year's team is such, if you look at it, except for Hurst and Cole, I think every other one of these guys is back next year. It speaks if Michigan gets any sort of quarterback play, they might have a chance to have a special season next year.
Head now to number 3 on our Michigan Man Top 10. And at number 3, a guy that Coach Harbaugh talked about a little bit earlier in our opening for the show, if you've been with us for the entire time, Rashawn Gary, who has been just double-teamed and shit-blocked repeatedly. So Gary this year. Go ahead, James.
I wish Gary had better stats because I don't think people nationally appreciate how good of a year he's having, and he even's getting ripped down by Michigan fans. But he comes at me, Tom. You look at the defensive line. If you just look at Rashawn Gary every single play, you will just be like, "Holy crap, this guy is amazing!" Right? He's just so fast, but he just he hasn't got the sacks or the interceptions, fumble recoveries that you're looking for, and he's been kind of overshadowed by that everyone seems to be talking about this week.
Yeah, we'll head now to number 2, a guy that's actually been number one or at least top two for pretty much, I think, the entire week, or season, excuse me, Devin Bush, who's just been a tackling machine for Michigan.
Yeah, Bush is amazing. He's the best Michigan linebacker, I think, in probably since 2006 with David Harris. That if I'm really being objective, he is. And he might be having a better season than Harris did in 06. So love what I'm seeing out of Bush. He is not your defensive MVP at this point because we got another guy, but I couldn't imagine a linebacker coming out and having a better start to his first 6 games as a starter than Bush has had.
He's just done a little bit of everything this year. You can see it in the stat sheet, the 6 tackles for loss and 5 sacks. He's actually been pretty good in coverage as well with 5 pass breakups. Everything Michigan has asked Devin Bush to do, he's exceeded at.
Absolutely. Yep. Love it. Glad he's on the team. Glad he didn't pick Florida State.
Yes, yes. Heading out to number 1 and at number 1, it is MAURICE HURST. Mentioned at the top of the show. The past couple games for Hurst, he has been just disruptive as can be all over the field and in the backfield.
He's been phenomenal, Tom. I can't stress enough how good he's played, and then also just wonder how you get so much better from year 3 to year 4 or year 2 to year 3. Like, he was non-existent in the Brady Hoke days when he was like a freshman, and then he didn't do much in 15 and didn't do a ton in 16 until the second half of the year, and now all of a sudden Pro Football Focus has him as the number 1 player in the country according to performance on the field and actually how you grade out. Had a field goal block, Tom, terrorizing the quarterback. Mo Hurst, and I was really surprised on some of these preseason, midseason All-American teams. I was surprised some other guys like Devin Bush didn't get any play on that, but it was no surprise what I meant to say that Hurst was pretty much on every single one I saw as a defensive first-team All-American.
All right, for those of you just now tuning in, we'll take you through the Michigan Man Top 10 before we get into some rumors and some Penn State talk. At number 10 is Mason Cole, the offensive lineman, coming up perhaps his best game of the season. Karan Higdon checks in at number 9. At number 8 is David Long, the cornerback. Number 7 is Kaliki Hudson, the safety/linebacker Viper player is the exact role. Chase Winovich checks in at number 6. At number 5 is the kicker Quinn Nordine, who's been fantastic this year. Lavert Hill checks in at number 4, another cornerback. That's a promising sign for that Michigan defense. Number 3 is Rashawn Gary, facing a plethora of double teams this season. At number 2 is Devin Bush, the talented young linebacker. And then at number 1 is MAURICE HURST, the defensive lineman, on track to be a first-round pick in this year's NFL draft. Once again, folks, I'm Tom Downey.
Hope these guys keep it up. Yep.
Alongside me is James Yoder, the Michigan football insider. Follow him on Twitter at James T. Yoder. I am at WhatGoingDowney. All right, James, time to talk a little bit of rumors here, and they all focus on one player, quarterback Brandon Peters. We have some spring game highlights here to show you as well as we talk about this. But James, we'll start with, I think, one that we've actually talked about before, and really I think multiple times both on this show and off air between you and myself. It's that, is he too passive?
It seems like that's the case, Tom, because I've read from multiple groups of online stuff, not people I really know, but people I think have some insight into the program. People who covered him when he was a recruit have talked to his college coach. We've got a quote here, Tom, I just want to kind of go over. It's basically a quote this week from Rivals that his high school coach basically said he thinks that Peters turned off some coaches in the recruiting process because he was too timid, too laid back, and that's and he didn't recruit other players. He wasn't one of these guys that would tweet at guys to commit to Michigan, etc. And that kind of when he got into campus at Michigan, he didn't show enough leadership. He didn't gain the respect of his classmates to even have a chance last year or this year. And I just don't think Harbaugh trusts him as a leader to kind of look at the guys in the eyes to command an offense. But his coach did say once Brandon Peters gets in the game, the light goes on for him and he's a performer. So we just got to give him a chance, I guess. That's the only way to know if that's true. But that's a for Harbaugh, Tom. That is fact. I have heard that multiple times, and his high school coach basically confirmed it.
Yeah, for Harbaugh's folks means it's a fact. F-A-C-K, fact. Head now to our next Peters rumor. Oh, sorry, James, go ahead.
I just said F-A-C-K, Tom. Fact.
That's how you spell fact. All right, head now to our second little Peters tidbit here. Is Brandon Peters being prepped to start against Rutgers? James, you've given this 3 Harbaughs, which means pretty likely.
Yeah, this one's pretty likely, Tom. I do think the only thing that could change it would be a second half Purdue style performance out of John O'Korn, where he leads them on multiple scoring drives, doesn't really have any brutal turnovers or big mistakes. If O'Korn goes something like 17 of 23 for 210 and 2 touchdowns and no turnovers against Penn State, he probably gets the nod against Rutgers. But if it's 10 of 20 for 58 yards, even if Michigan wins the game, I think Peters is your guy. I think this one's pretty likely. It's going to depend on if we get 2013 John O'Korn or 2017 John O'Korn.
And then one more little rumor-o-meter here, James. Peters will play versus Penn State if O'Korn struggles. You've given this just one Harbaugh.
Yeah, it's not that I've heard anything. This is like a rumor out there that's, they're going to give O'Korn 4 or 5 series, maybe into the end of the first half and see where things at before bringing in Peters if they're not doing good. But I just look at Jim Harbaugh. This is, I think, a stubborn guy when it comes to in-game, and I don't think he makes play changes like this. He's never in his coaching career really split quarterbacks where one guy takes a series or a quarter, I think, ever. And you saw O'Korn get one, a series in the Florida game following 2 pick sixes by Wilton Speight, but it was Speight right back in there the next series. So I just think this has almost no chance of happening unless, we're talking catastrophic pick sixes in the first 3 plays or something like that Michigan throws the ball. So if not for that, I doubt it happens.
All right, weigh in now, folks. I want your guys' comments and everything in the comments section. Producer Elena can get them up on screen. Should Brandon Peters get a shot at quarterback? James, I think that you are on the yes side.
Yes, I really just think the last 2 weeks were the perfect time to give him that shot. Not against Michigan State, but 3 weeks ago against Purdue, I really think you could have given Peters, he got a few snaps there at the end, but I think you could have given him the entire second half of the fourth quarter, 2 or 3 series. I really wish they would have pulled the trigger after that Michigan State debacle and played him against Indiana, because then you would have had something to say, okay, is he the guy for Penn State? You know what you have with John O'Korn, so why not give Peters a chance?
Comment here coming in from Ryan says Peters probably will be playing this game, meaning the Penn State game, not starting, but Peters will end the game. How likely do you think that is, James?
I think the only way it happens is because of injury. Tom, I wanted to say something funny really quick on John O'Korn. I was listening to this gambling podcast, not mine. I do have a gambling podcast, Straight Cash Homie. People can go download it. But I was listening to another one. Just want to kind of hear their picks and maybe see if anyone agrees or disagrees with me. And the one guy picks Michigan because he said, this is a John O'Korn revenge game. He's from Pittsburgh, and he's mad Penn State didn't give him, or from Pennsylvania, mad Penn State didn't give him a scholarship. And literally the other 3 guys in the show made fun of him for like 9 minutes. He's like, never has there been a John O'Korn revenge game in the history of the world. It was a funny segment. But yeah, I think he's going to stay in regardless. I don't expect anything to happen that we haven't seen. I think remedial play and maybe a lucky pass here or there. Nothing downfield. But he's going to stay in unless he gets hurt.
Danny here with another comment that I want to get to as well says that Peters will play, but not against Penn State. If he plays against PSU and doesn't do well, which he thinks is probably going to happen if he does play, he may never get back mentally. I kind of get the feeling that you and maybe even Coach Harbaugh are on the same boat as Danny.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Danny. Make sure to give us a like. Check out the podcast. You can watch the highlights after the game tomorrow every week. But I just think it's a bad you don't do something like that. If you're going to play Brandon Peters, you give him snaps against Florida when you're up in the fourth quarter. You give him snaps against Cincinnati, and you prepare him. But to throw him in there in one of the more, I would say in the Big Ten, it's the toughest place to play at night for sure. Maybe you could say Wisconsin at Camp Randall, or maybe Ohio State is a tough place to play too. But I think it's Penn State. Iowa, also a tough place. I don't want to offend any Iowans who think they have the best night home field advantage. But it's a tough place to play, tough place to win. You've seen Penn State pull off a lot of upsets over the years, specifically last year with Ohio State with that whiteout and a night game. So it's a bad position to put a redshirt freshman who already comes across as a little bit of a beta male to face that environment.
All right, James. Now time for a little fun segment here that you put together. Some Michigan moments against Penn State, the top 6. And we're going to go all the way back to 1993 with that goal line stand.
Tom, this is the first game in the Michigan Penn State series, And it's just such an iconic moment. So Penn State is the beast of the East at this point. Think like what Florida State and Miami was in the 90s, just general college football. That's kind of what people thought when Penn State came to the Big Ten. There was even things like, will Penn State ever lose a Big Ten game? So this is people just thought they'd come in and dominate them because they've been so good, multiple national titles over a 10, 12-year period in the 80s and late 70s. And Michigan shut them down. This was kind of the iconic moment of man ball, welcome to the Big Ten. And it's funny, they switch sides after third down. They go to the other side of the field for fourth down. Michigan shuts them down. So that was my number 6, Tom. I vividly remember that. I was fairly young, but it's one that stands out for me.
I was 1 year old, so I do not recall that. Head now to number 5 here. This is, I think, maybe more known for the photo. Alan Branch wrecking Anthony Morelli, the Penn State quarterback.
Michigan fans will never forget this one, Tom, because that defense was probably as comparable to this one as their ability to get at the quarterback with linebackers and linemen. You had guys like Lamar Woodley, Sean Crable, David Harris, and Alan Branch, like all guys who had good NFL careers. And Branch, back-to-back plays, crushes Morelli. And reason I think Michigan fans took so much pleasure in Morelli going down, there was like a high school rivalry between him and Michigan quarterback Chad Henne. Henne picked Michigan, Morelli picked Penn State, both in Penn State guys. And I think that Michigan knocked him out of the game and went on to win. It was like a big moment for that team. They kind of were undervalued that year, had a big win at Penn State, then kind of went on to win 5 or 6 more games and started 11-0.
Is this kind of one of your favorite photos of all time for Michigan football?
This photo is classic. I see people on Twitter, I see people on all kinds of places that this is like their background photo or their profile photo sometimes. And so that's why I included. I think people who are watching the show, this photo will resonate with them if there have been Michigan football fans, prior to 2006.
Now, this one I do recall. This is a little bit more my era because I remember Anthony Morelli, the quarterback, and then Alan Branch, of course, still playing in the NFL with the Patriots.
With the Patriots, absolutely. Yep, he made it. That was a great defensive line. I love that team.
Heading out to number 4 here. This is the Tom Brady comeback game, James.
Tom, interesting setup. Like, people still were doubting Tom Brady, the best quarterback of all time. This is halfway through his 5th-year senior year, and he was still kind of splitting time here and there with Drew Henson. But he throws a pick 6 with 8 or 9 minutes left. You think the game's over, but then comes back-to-back touchdowns on 2 drives under 3 minutes. They drove down, stuck it in there. Tom Brady, Michael Vick getting in there, Tom, with the quarterback draw, a call and draw, and then this corner pass coming to Marcus Knights, who a guy who was at Michigan, I feel, forever. And that was a great moment for Michigan because that team went on. They didn't lose another game that entire season. Michigan didn't, and they finished in the top 3 or 4 in the country. But Penn State, it was that year going into college football, it was Penn State, Florida State. Those were like the dominant 2 teams, 1-2 to start the year. Penn State was number 2 the entire season, lost the game before Michigan, the game before this one, and then Michigan took them down again. And so they went from 2 to out of the title hunt in record time.
Heading out to number 3 here. This is Chris Perry's touchdown in overtime.
Yeah, not a ton of backstory behind this one. 2002 was kind of mediocre year for both teams, but Chris Perry taking this one overtime, first overtime game in Michigan Stadium history. And at the time of the game, they were both top 15 teams, but it didn't play out where they kind of got any better than that, though. But great moment. Chris Perry went off. He was happy, as you can see, as happy as you can be to score that touchdown.
I thought he was going to be a lot better in the NFL. I am from Cincinnati. My entire family is full of Bengals fans. They were very disappointed by Chris Perry, that first-round pick back in 2004.
Yeah, injury report. But, Tom, these next 2 are the ones I'm super excited about.
Well, head to number 2 then now. It's the old Chad Henne to Mario Manningham TD.
Tom, phenomenal game, the most electric atmosphere I ever can remember following a Michigan game. Last second, and Michigan had to have so many breaks to get this play. Manningham was a true freshman, making this catch in like his 5th or 6th games. Michigan was reeling at this time, Tom. They came into the year as a top 5 team after a great 2004 year that saw them go to the Rose Bowl with Hart and Henne as true freshmen. They lose 3 of their first 6 games, including Notre Dame and Wisconsin on the road, and then come back to this Penn State, and they had to make this happen, they had to get a kickoff return to the 50. They had to get a 1 extra second put on the clock, and then right before that play, a Michigan receiver dropped the ball inbounds. If he would have caught it, then Michigan wouldn't have got that last second chance. And so the guy dropped it, and they had 1 second left on the clock. Hits Manningham for the win. That was phenomenal. Every time I watch that play, it's kind of like that Steph Curry shot against the Thunder a couple years ago, where it just every time it does it for me.
All right, we'll head now to number 1, though, all the way back to 1997. It was Judgment Day.
Tom, this is a great day in college football. Maybe the most memorable I could ever think of in my life. The top 4 teams played each other in the same day, 1 versus 3, 2 versus 4. Penn State looked like they were going to roll to a national title. Michigan comes in there and murders them, Tom. It was a phenomenal beatdown. They were up 34-0, took the pedal off the brake. The 34-0 in the third quarter, I believe. Didn't really try much after that. They could have won 55-0 if they really kept the starters in. And this hit by Dadrian Taylor, Tom. You will not realize how people don't understand how hard of a hit that was and how illegal that hit would be today. But neither one of those guys ever played college football or any football, for instance, in their entire career. That ended both of their careers with serious neck and back injuries. Woodson, I really think that touchdown catch was what propelled him to be a Heisman frontrunner, and then he did the same thing against Ohio State with a big catch, a punt return, and an interception to seal the deal over one Peyton Manning and Randy Moss. Talk about a Heisman top 3.
All right, folks on screen here, we have the little poll here. What's your favorite Michigan versus Penn State memory? James, is it 97 for you, or is it the Henne to Manningham catch?
I really struggle with those two, Tom, and I think the most memorable one is actually the 2005 one because of the change. It's win or die on one, win or lose on one single play, where it was like, oh crap, we're gonna maybe stay close to Penn State in '97. They blow them out, but it was so dominant from like the middle of the first quarter that it doesn't stick out. It's tough to say. I put this list together, but that instance, that play against Penn State in 05 was the better play, but obviously clearly the '97 was a better overall dominant victory.
All right, time for some more Penn State-Michigan talk here, James. This, of course, is a massive game this week. We'll start with some series history. For starters, Michigan leads the all-time series. They've won 3 straight. And then at one point, they actually won 9 straight against Penn State from 97 to 07.
Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it? I mean, this was 97, 98, 99, and then a couple of those years like 2005, Penn State was in the top 5 or 6 in the country for at least 3 of those, maybe 4 of those 9 victories. And Lloyd Carr, I mean, it was all him. He dominated that series against Joe Paterno. Paterno was coach for every single one of those 9 losses. Imagine in this day and age, if Lloyd, just say, I don't know, Kirby Smart loses 9 straight games to Florida, or James Franklin loses 9 straight to Penn State. People would freak out after 3 or 4 losses, and so that's just incredible. And during this time frame, Paterno became the all-time leading game winner in college football history.
We're going to get to some keys of the game here. We are also going to have score predictions, so folks, get yours in the comments now. We're going to start, though, with some keys to the game. And at number 1, James, I think this one's very obvious. Stop Saquon Barkley for the 3rd straight year.
Yeah, I think people were starting to get on the Saquon Barkley hype train last year before this game, and Michigan had 5 running backs that looked better than him. Now, they weren't going against their own defense, but Barkley, he has not been able to get anything going against Michigan for 2 straight years, 50-ish yards, really shut down in the first half last year. I think he maybe had 1 yard in the first half, and by the time he got any yards, the game was over. So got to stop Barkley. If you do, you got a really good chance of winning.
I'll say this with Barkley, he's looked different this year. He looks more explosive and more agile than he was last year. We've also seen some teams have a little bit of success bottling him up. He went off against Iowa with some great plays. Indiana did a good job of stopping him on the ground, but he was good on special teams and in the receiving game. Northwestern, outside of one big play, they shut down Barkley in that game, but I think that's also the concern. If Barkley gets one crease, if you lose focus for a second, he's going to make you pay.
Yeah, he's a lot faster than he was last year. I do agree with that. And they're getting him involved in the passing game, getting him involved on where he came on a kickoff return out of nowhere a few weeks ago. And so more to worry about this year when it comes to his versatility.
Mm-hmm. All right, second key to the game here, no turnovers. And then I added this part, James. I'm looking at you, O'Korn.
Not just O'Korn, Tom, but it's the running backs too. They finally cleaned it up last week, but prior to that, they've been fumbling multiple times every single game. So if Michigan has 2 turnovers, if they have 2 turnovers, they will not keep it within 14 points. That's all we can say. So just think of yourself: 2 turnovers, game's over. Just turn off the TV and go outside.
This is one of those games where if Michigan doesn't win the turnover battle, I don't really know how they can eke out a win.
It would be impossible.
So that's your second key to the game there, no turnovers. We'll head now to our third key to the game. And James, this has kind of been the case of late, especially with the tight ends. Get them and the halfbacks involved in the passing game.
And I don't know why they haven't, Tom. I wonder if Pep Hamilton, coming in from 4 or 5 years, 6 years in the NFL with the Colts and Browns, if he has been brainwashed to NFL passing trees, and those don't include maybe running backs as most. But Michigan has always been a throw to your running back school, and they've just gotten away from that recently. I don't like it at all, and they're not throwing to the tight ends anymore except for a couple plays. But the receivers can't get open. O'Korn can't throw the ball on field, so if they don't get involved, there is no passing game if they don't get the tight ends and running backs involved.
And then one more key to the game before we get into some predictions. The offensive line plays like they did against Indiana. That'd be great, James.
Be phenomenal, Tom, and you got to think the entire focus of this week in practice, I would say they're probably separating O'Korn and they're just having somebody hand the ball off to running back. But I think it is focusing on the offensive linemen, getting pushed for the running backs, getting that second level, sliding off and hitting a linebacker to get an extra couple yards for that back. O'Korn, he needs to be practicing on being able to throw the ball 5 yards. He doesn't need to worry about handing the ball off. So they can put a third stringer in for that. But it's going to be tough to win this game if you don't run the ball.
So those are your keys of the game, folks. Stopping Barkley, no turnovers, get the tight ends and the RBs involved in the passing game, and have the offensive line play like they did against Indiana. Once again,
Tom,
folks,
I think you need to get McDonald's involved in the game. They need to get Taco Bell involved in the running game. You'll get the runs with Taco Bell, but Arby's as well. Get the Arby's involved.
I realize now where you're going with that. That's funny. I like that one.
Yeah.
All right, folks. Once again, I'm Tom Downey. The guy with the jokes is James Yoder. Hit him up on Twitter at James T. Yoder. He's the Michigan Football Insider. I'm on Twitter at WhatGoingDowney. Today's show is presented by Game Time, the #1 app if you need last-minute sports or concert tickets. If you need a college football ticket this week, head over to chatsports.com/tickets. Get the Game Time app. It's the best way to go.
Get the Game Time app. Get to the next Michigan game. You'll find cheap ticket against Rutgers next week, especially if Michigan loses this week to Penn State. So get them through Game Time.
All right, guys. Score predictions. Get them going in the comment section here. We're going to bring some up on screen throughout the show. We'll start with James. We'll do the -1 first, I guess. Because Michigan has a really bad offense right now, I don't think they're going to be able to pull off the upset on the road. I'll take Penn State winning 17-10. But that does mean that they cover the spread.
Ooh, Tom, that's a big spread. I don't know what to make of that. But, I guess Penn State is #2. Michigan doesn't look like they can score. But I think Michigan has a better chance than the scribes and the pundits and the analysts will tell you out there. And there's a couple reasons for it. One, I think Michigan has a absurdly giant coaching advantage in this game. I don't think James Franklin is all he's built up to be. I think there's been a little bit of getting luck in the bottle, kind of like, I don't know what that kind of phrase is, but you get lightning in a bottle with Saquon Barkley and getting good play out of McSorley. I think he's an 8-4 coach. I don't think he's as good as maybe the record would indicate over the last 15 games. His last 2 big losses at Penn State, the last game they lost in the regular season last year to Michigan, 49-10. Last home game they lost, 2015, also to Michigan. I believe it was 28-16, but I can double check that one. I think Michigan comes out with a game plan to run the ball, Tom, and I think they will go to those tight ends, maybe get the RBs involved, as you say. I got Michigan win this one, Tom. You're going to call me crazy. 10-6 Michigan.
You're a little bit crazy there, James.
No touchdowns to Penn State. And by the way, I don't think Michigan's offense scores that touchdown. I think it's a special teams or defensive touchdown.
So you think it's going to be all defense. I will say this on this game.
No offensive touchdowns being played, Tom. No offensive touchdowns. Michigan's got the best yardage defense in the country. Penn State's got the best scoring defense in the country, and neither one of them are that good on offense in the rankings and the charts. So it's not like they're going to light up the scoreboard. I think it's going to be a 10-6 game. People are going to look at Twitter tomorrow during this game, and it's basically people are going to be saying like this game has set football back 60 years to 1951. It's going to be so terrible on offense, but I think Michigan's got the better defense, and that's why they get the win.
I saw some comments in there agreeing with you. Defensive touchdown, just how Michigan wins. I saw two different 17-13 wins for Michigan. But that is all the time we have for today. James, thank you for stopping by. Again, folks, follow him on Twitter at James T. Yoder. I'm at What Going Downey. If you guys missed anything, don't worry. We're going to play it all again here for you so you guys can loop it and watch it. There's a little Harbaugh clip coming up here as well once we wrap up. So for James T. Yoder, producer Lena Bond, I am Tom Downey. You guys stay classy out there.
Get that podcast.